including people in Al-Qaeda and ISIS.
Oh, you love them?
Not the organization.
Right. Good. Now,
I love you because whoever you are coming here to debate Christians, to download,
Daniel,
to put them
do you speak
down.
Arabic?
I do.
good. So for the whole world who's listening, you speak Arabic. What is the challenge of the Quran and the nature of the challenge? فَأْتُوا بِصُورَةٍ مِّن مِثْلِهِ. When the Quran says, bring a chapter like unto it, what is the objective nature of the challenge?
Okay, and Muslima ibn Habib brought surahs before Muhammad, surahs like it. But
Subhanallah. I ask you,
Subhanallah, those surahs, I am sure
I am
they are part
asking-
of your Quran now.
I'm asking you to think what I'm asking.
Listen, you ask, I'm giving you the reply now. They
What's my
brought
question?
surahs, they brought surahs.
What is the question I asked you?
To be surah min mithlihi.
No.
They brought
No,
the
that's not
surah
my
like
question.
it.
Daniel misunderstood.
Yes.
My question to
I
you,
always misunderstand.
yeah, my question,
Everybody misunderstands you.
listen,
Everybody
my
misunderstands
question
Mansur,
to
because
you
are always
is
right.
this.
You are always right. Amazing.
You're not listening, are you?
No, I'm
My
not with
question
you.
to you is,
Yeah.
what is the nature of the Quranic challenge of bringing a chapter like unto it? Give me the objective nature of this challenge.
Okay, give me the nature of Quran Muhammad was preaching at that time. Did he have a Quran at that time? No. Did he have anything written? No.
So,
why
are you avoiding the question?
You need to listen.
Why are you avoiding the
I am
question?
giving you the answer. I'm giving you the answer.
Have you understood my question?
First, when the first surah...
فهمت علي؟
Wait, I فهمت عليك.
Right. What is my question?
اسمعني.
What is my question?
اسمعني. أول سورة باعتقادكم نزلت اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. وربما واحدة من الاثنتين بعدها يعني 73 أو 74 المدثر أو المزمل. أنت لا تعرف وأنا لا أعرف ومحمد لا يعرف. قل يا أيها
محمد صلى الله
المدثر
عليه وسلم طبعا يعرف.
قل قم فأنذر وربك فكبر وثيابك فطهر والرجز فاهجر ولا تمنن تستكثر. الثانية اللي ربما تكون الأولى بعد اقرأ يا أيها المزمل قم الليل إلا قليلا نصفه أو انقص منه قليلا أو زد عليه وإيه ورتل القرآن ترتيلا. أي قرآن? There was no Quran at that time. Allah, Gabriel, angel or devil asking Muhammad to recite the Quran. That was the first inspiration. At the time they had no Quran. He didn't have any Quran. Nothing
So
is
this is
written.
how you understand,
There is
right?
no Lawh Mahfuz. Nothing is written. Muhammad was handless.
Daniel,
Nothing in his hand to recite.
you've
But the
answered
Torah
a
and the
question
Injil.
I didn't even ask.
Okay.
My question to you once again.
Yes.
When the Quran says, فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِثْلِهِ, bring a surah like unto it. What is this likeness unto the surah? What is the nature that this challenge is asking you to bring? Okay. Is it about rhyming that you are giving me once again? We will discuss that, God willing. Is it about rhyming? Is it about contents? Is it about stylistic or asalib, tarakib? Is it about balagha? What is the nature of the challenge?
Right. Well, rhyming, Muhammad could not challenge the Arabs.
No, what exactly is the nature of the challenge?
My dilemma is the same dilemma as the Arabs at that time of Muhammad. He went to call for them. He has a message. And they discovered he had no message. That's why the Quran came to defend him. وَمَا هُوَ بِقَوْلِ سَاحِرٍ عَظِيمٍ. The Arabs did not have any contents from Muhammad. That's why they didn't believe him.
You don't understand that. You didn't even understand. Second time you failed to understand my question.
And no eloquence. Listen, you know the Arabic poetry?
Do you know poetry? Do you know?
Okay, listen to this.
No, you know.
Listen to this.
Okay.
تعرقني الدهر نهشا وحزا وأوجعني الدهر ضربا وغمزا وأفنى رجالي فبادوا معا فأصبح قلبي لهم مستفزا كأن لم يكونوا حما يرتقى إذ Who said that?
Who said it?
Before Muhammad.
Yeah, who said it?
And during that time.
Okay, who? Khamsa, good. My turn to respond.
And other poets from what you call Al-Jahiliyyah. It wasn't the time of Al-Jahiliyyah. It was the time of enlightenment. Islam brought the Jahiliyyah.
Oh, Islam brought Jahiliyyah.
Brought the ignorance, yes. because it didn't start.
Sorry. Anyway,
It brought
okay.
ignorance.
Give me
There's
another
nothing,
point.
No
Give me,
light. Tell me
Please.
what the Quran brought extra. It's not in the Bible, not in the Old Testament, in the Tanakh or the New Testament. The
no
Gospel.
problem. This is
Tell
the
me about something. The
Sure,
Quran
sure,
brought
sure.
special.
the discussion.
You mean
That's
the
the only
Jews?
way. Tawheed.
طبعا.
That's the only way.
طبعا.
You mean Jews did not have to.
Excuse me, listen.
يهوه إلهنا يهوه أحد. الرب إلهنا رب واحد. The Lord our God is one God.
Excuse
This
me.
is the Deuteronomy.
لم يلد ولم يولد.
Goodness me, what does it mean?
لم يلد ولم
This
يولد.
is more balagha here.
Listen.
This is more balagha
Now,
here.
it's my turn to now respond,
Yes.
right? I asked you what is the nature of the challenge of the Quran. Bring a chapter like into it. Of course, I gave you even options. Is it to do with balagha, eloquence? Is it to do with asalib, stylistics? Is it to do with rhymings? You didn't answer any of that because you do not even. Excuse me.
I tell you, there is no contents. No
Listen.
This is the dynamic.
Instead of
always your audience
Daniel,
would answer your
Daniel,
question.
listen.
No one is able to
Excuse
answer
me,
your
Daniel.
question, Mansur, no
You are
one
not
is able to
allowing
answer
me
your
to
question.
examine what you just said.
Your questions cannot be answered because you don't want answer. You are not looking for an answer.
You have answered
You are
already,
looking
haven't
to
you?
impose what you have.
Now, Daniel.
What religion you're preaching? What religion?
The worship of man.
Worship of
Man.
God, Allah, through Jesus Christ, my Lord.
Yeah, God became a man. That's religion. Right.
Okay, the Lord bless you and be with
See you later. Now, Daniel,
Catholicism, or is it like Protestant?
brother, we're having a discussion. So can we just finish this conversation?
I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
Full stop. I'm a Christian.
Unless you
full
want to
stop.
have a conversation.
It's okay.
I've been to St. Paul's Cathedral today.
Okay.
That's not my church, but
Listen,
I'm there. I'm visiting. Thank you, wonderful. You go there for the coffee then next time.
Now, Daniel.
That's fine. Why not?
Daniel,
Yes.
since
The church will come to everybody.
as an Arabic speaker, you find no contents in the Quran, you find no balagha in the Quran, and you find better rhyming elsewhere in the Quran. My question was, what was the nature of the challenge, which you did not elucidate, you did not explain. The reason why, because I am positive that you do not know the nature of the challenge of the Quran. You quoted Khansa. Now, if you were to quote the pre-Islamic poets, we have their abiyat, we have their poetry, right?
Tell me something.
wait,
Tell me something.
كفى نبكي من ذكرى حبيب
That's
فحومل
later. Okay,
سبحان
continue,
الله
continue.
بسقط اللواء بين الدخول فحوملي
قفا نبكي من ذكرى حبيب
منزلي
ومنزلي
بسقط اللواء بين
Okay, now you
الدخول
said it right.
فحوملي.
فتوضح في المقراء
Listen,
لم يعفو
who said
اسمها
this?
بما
Who said
من
this?
جنوب وشمال.
Who said this?
عصا بن عطلة اللبان.
No, Imrul Qais. So you don't know your poetry. Anyway, never mind.
Yes, the one,
Wait,
the
wait.
one whose daughter
Excuse me.
said to daughters of Muhammad,
Excuse
to
me.
Fatima, why
Daniel.
why your dad steal from the poet?
Daniel, listen. Daniel.
Yes.
Allow me to finish my
Muhammad
point.
steal from
No,
Imrul Qais.
you make what we call shotgun approach. Blah, 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 and then you confuse the discussion.
And you
The discussion
talk
is
and
this.
talk and
No.
talk and talk.
My discussion is on one point. فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِّثْلِهِ. So I recited in my bad Arabic perhaps, Imrul Qais' Mu'allaqat, very beginning. And you call someone else. So I don't say that you are very, very expert in the
And I
poetry.
continued yours, you
Please.
cannot continue mine.
Listen.
want to see how Arabic you are.
Listen. So what I'm saying to you is this. Scholars, Arabic experts have already done the studies. They have looked into all of these pre-Islamic poetry. They have looked at the statement of the Prophet ﷺ as recorded in the Hadith, right? Looked at the Quran. These are three distinct linguistic genres. The Quran is totally unique in the asalib that it brings and goes against the conventions of the pre-Islamic poets. To give you an example, let's start with Surah Al-Fatiha as we were discussing earlier, right? Surah Al-Fatiha starts by saying this. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين. Listen, when it says الحمد لله رب العالمين, do you know of any pre-Islamic poets who knew the concept of al-alamin more than one alam in their poetry? Do you?
Go to the
In the
go to
Islamic
the
poetry?
philosophy. Come on, go.
Islamic poetry.
He's going to run away. He don't know.
Go to the philosophy, go to the Greeks, go to the Babylonian.
When he stop him,
They know about the worlds.
Listen,
Go to the Sharia.
you did not
My
understand.
friend,
You did
my
not.
friend,
You did
my
not.
friend.
Daniel, I asked you
start
from
with Muhammad,
the
you cannot
Shu'ara.
think that there is a civilization
Excuse me.
before him.
You misunderstand my question.
But
That's
you
the
don't
problem.
recognize there is knowledge before him.
Of
You
course
don't
we do.
recognize- What
Of
does it
course
mean
we
if
do.
If I will say Afghanistan بتفتكموها, tell me what does it mean?
Listen.
Tell me what does it mean? Tell me if anyone
I-
can say something like that.
I said,
Mansur, tell me if anyone of you can say Afghanistan بتفتكموها.
listen,
And tell me where it came from.
listen.
No. This is what you are saying.
Excuse me.
A very-
I told.
a
You know what?
phrase, goodness.
Do you know why?
question first.
Do you know why it's difficult to speak with?
He asked a question.
Brother, thank you. Do you know why it's difficult to speak to Christians in this park? It's difficult to have a meaningful discussion. I asked you kindly this, right? What is the nature of the challenge? And this is what we're discussing. You started quoting the pre-Islamic poets, and I also quoted one. And I said, look, there are three distinctive genre types of literature: the Quran, the Hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the poetry of the pre-Islamic. And I have not finished. I have not finished.
Was the Quran written by one person?
Can I-
Tell me if the Quran
Look.
is written by one person?
If you do not,
Stylistic, Mansur, don't
if
run
you
away.
do not let me
Mansur,
finish,
don't run away. The Makkis
I have
and
not
Madanis
finished.
were written by the same person. No,
listen,
the Quran is
Daniel,
not written by one
Daniel,
person.
I would love to speak.
Al-Jinn,
I
are the
would
verses in the
love to
Quran.
talk about this subject,
I
right?
said if we have
So,
heard
listen,
the
listen.
wonderful Quran,
So,
amanna bihi, we believe
Daniel,
it.
listen.
Come on.
As an Arab speaker, today we will have a very good, fruitful, knowledgeable discussion. Bi'idhnillah.
I don't,
Right.
I don't know, Mansur.
Listen,
You
can't.
said you debate Christians and you.
Daniel,
never
you are
come
not
to-
letting me to make
because
my
you don't-
point.
Because you don't come to a logic. You bring a phrase, you bring something, and you want exactly like
Daniel,
it.
Daniel, do you know
I
how
would
the
say-
whole world's
well,
going to think?
I would say we can bring surahs like it.
We will see. That's
In the
that's
contents-
precisely my point here to
contents
discuss with you.
And in the eloquence,
Excuse me.
in everything.
Are you afraid to challenge this?
If I'm
your-
afraid, I'm not a Christian.
Good. Very good. Very brave Christian. So now let me make my
50
point.
years I'm Christian in the Middle East. friend.
Okay, can I finish? Thank you. You're very kind. So, the Quran uses asalib,
Okay.
tarakib, mustalahat,
And
mufradat.
Okay, you mentioned that.
Excuse
Mansur,
me,
before.
I have
You
not
have
finished
mentioned
my
them. I'm
statement.
not deaf.
You cut me off in the middle.
But I'm not deaf. You mentioned
Kun.
them. Why you repeat them?
Look.
Why you repeat them to me? Is that for the camera?
No, I want
Is
you
that
to
what they are
understand what I'm
paying
saying.
you?
Oh, how
I
much?
will tell you.
How much do you pay me?
I will tell you, Mansur, I'm standing for my Lord.
Can I finish?
I'm standing
Okay,
for His
can I
Lord.
finish?
You keep repeating and you
Okay.
keep concerned
Do you
about
know-
the camera.
do you know what's the problem?
Talk to me
Okay, I'm
about
talking
the
to you.
stylistics.
Talk to me. Good,
You mentioned
good.
the style in the Quran.
Stylistics.
Tell me about
Okay.
the stylistics.
I'm going to talk to you.
The Makki-
Okay?
Makki
Listen.
surahs.
Yes, stop there.
The Makki surahs,
I'm
are they
talking.
similar to the Middle
Daniel,
East?
I'm
Tell
talking.
me.
I'm talking.
Okay.
So I started by demonstrating to you, and will demonstrate
Yes.
from Surah Al-Fatiha how the stylistics of the Quran
Yes.
is unlike the stylistics of the pre-Islamic poets. So I started by saying an ayah from Surah Al-Fatiha.
Okay.
Right? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. I will challenge you to go and read and research and find one single pre-Islamic poetry from their literature where they use al-alameen, the lafz al-alameen. Because the Arabs, let me finish, the Arabs had no such concept. So when the Quran says bring something like it, Quran is bringing these new concepts, and I'll demonstrate to you as I move along. The next ayah. Ar-Rahman
You
Ar-Rahim.
talk like a newspaper and you want me to say the headlines.
No,
only.
I am making my
now
point.
we talk about stylistic.
I haven't finished.
Wait, no, listen to me now.
How can I listen
We
to you?
start with
I'm just
we
about
start
to
with
give
the
you.
early surahs. With the early surahs.
Hello,
short surahs.
Daniel.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah.
Subhanallah, what's wrong with this guy?
قل هو الله أحد.
I haven't finished.
لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. لإلاف قريش إلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت الذي أطعمهم من جوع وآمنهم من
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
stylistics here. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ومن كل واحد ضد يسوع المسيح.
المسيح
I seek refuge
المسيح
in
عبد
God
الله ورسوله.
against everyone against the Lord Jesus Christ.
Now,
listen
okay.
to this.
Daniel,
This is different from the Madani Surah. Goodness me, complete different.
Do you want me to speak about that?
You know why?
Do you want me to speak about the
want
Makki and
understand-
Madani?
Now I want you to understand why.
Oh, you want?
You know, before the
this is
birth of
called
Muhammad-
self-discussion.
You know, before the birth of Muhammad, there was a poet, a prophet called Muslima ibn Habib. And the Muslims are good in diminutive, giving diminutive form to the names. They gave him the name Musaylama. Al-Kadhab. Yes, Musaylama was born before Muhammad. He had a Quran before Muhammad. يا ضفدع أم الضفدعين رأسك في الماء ورجلك في الطين. A similar, stylistically exactly like the
It's
Quran.
eloquent, right?
Exactly.
Is this
And
eloquent?
then, that is Musaylama. You told him the lie. You called him the liar. Exactly. Exactly. You see, Muslims are good in that. Very good in giving diminutive names to others, like Akhtal.
This is a revelation.
Like Hyde bin Akhitub. Wonderful name, beautiful name, Hyde. The Muslims called him Huyay ibn Akhitub instead of Akhitub, the beautiful brother. They gave him diminutive name because he's a Jew, and Islam doesn't agree with a Jew. Fine, then they are descendants of, by the way, descendants of Abe. Some of them, descendants of Abe and swine, gave them diminutive names. That's since Muhammad. And Muslims are learning the same style up to date. This is the style of the Quran. The Makki style is completely different from the Makki style. Why on earth? Give me the Quran. I have the Quran here. Let me see. Not here. Why on earth you take the Makki surah, they are all short and they fill small part of the Quran, and the Madani surah are long and they fill the biggest part of the Quran.
What's the point after that? What do you want to say?
Okay, please,
This is
please,
different
please.
style.
I'm just being
We are talking about style.
صابرا.
That is the point. We
Sabura.
are talking about style. It is different style, not written by the same person. And definitely some of Muslims' Quran came into those because Muslims were desperate to collect the Quran. So they had to accept any verses with two witnesses, they will be included in the Quran. So the poetry of Imr al-Qais came part of it. That's especially those short surahs. دنت الساعة وانشق القمر. That is a poet of Imr al-Qais. You quoted Imr al-Qais. قف نبكي من ذكرى حبيب ومنزل. Don't think I didn't know Imr al-Qais.
But you said someone else said this.
No.
It's
I was
on the
joking.
camera.
Repeat the camera.
You will see it when you see watch the
camera.
video yourself.
Repeat the camera. Start mu'allaqat, I will compete with you. Start the poetry, I will compete with you.
Okay. So you know the mu'allaqat? Yeah?
I want to know how
No.
Arabic you know.
So,
you
no,
know
no.
actually.
You know the
I
mu'allaqat,
want to
right?
know how
Look.
Arabic- How much Arabic you know.
If you know the mu'allaqat because you can compete with the mu'allaqat, very good point for me. You know, I really appreciate speaking to someone who knows the mu'allaqat. Now, based on your knowledge of the mu'allaqat and the pre-Islamic poetry, can you quote me one bait, one line where they use al-alamin? This is
No.
Look.
No.
None.
No, simple
Good.
word.
Good.
No.
Secondly,
But what's the point?
Wait.
What's the point?
Can-
I brought
can
you.
I finish?
brought you, Mansur. I brought you
Can I-
something
look.
equivalent. Afghanistan.
I
but
let
Turkey
you
Can you
continue.
tell me someone else said this?
Subhanallah.
Can you tell me in the whole world?
The moment I
someone
speak,
else said Afghanistan, but
shuts me up.
In the whole world, were there anyone said Afghanistan but تفتكموها?
Listen,
No.
Daniel?
So what's the point?
Daniel,
What's the point? It's
are you finished?
useless.
Are you finished?
Carry on.
Good. So now, as I was demonstrating, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin. In any of the Arabic poetry that you have read, whether in the Mu'allaqat or elsewhere, do the Arabs ever make someone Malik of Zaman?
What is Malik Zaman?
Malik al-Yawm.
Yawm al-Din.
Allah says he's Malik Yawm al-Din.
What does it
In the Arabic,
Tell me what does
I'll
it
tell
mean?
you. Yawm al-Din, Yawm al-Jaza. Yeah? Wait, let me finish. Do not interrupt. In the pre-Islamic poetry that you have read, have you come across even one line where the Arabs were even familiar of this expression, this usloob, this tarkeeb, where they used this ownership of zaman, time?
Not time. Yawm al-Din, one particular.
Excuse me.
No.
Here
Your translation
No.
of the Quran is corrupt.
Listen.
No.
You're not
don't
listening.
touch me.
Oh, sorry.
Your translation of the Quran is corrupt translation.
Yawm means what?
Yawm al-Din is not the time.
Excuse me, Yawm means what?
Yawm day.
Yawm. So,
It is a Hebrew word. Listen, my son, it is a Hebrew word.
Please.
Yawm Layla.
Excuse me,
When God
Daniel,
created
Daniel,
Yawm Layla.
relax
Okay,
and
I'm
listen to my
listening.
argument.
I'm listening to you.
My argument
But
is
you are
this.
not listening, Mansur.
My argument is this.
Mansur, you do not listen. You have not learned to listen here.
I am
You learn
asking
to impose
you.
your opinion.
No, I am telling
learn
you
impose
to
your
answer
opinion
my
on
question.
questions without knowledge.
No, my
Tell
point.
Tell me about
okay.
this now.
No, I haven't finished yet. My point about Malik al-Yawm mean, what was I making?
Make sense.
Wait.
What is the
In the
eloquence there?
Arabic vocabulary of the pre-Islamic Arabs, did they even have a concept where you can be a Malik of Zaman, Malik of Yawm, Malik of Sa'a? Never.
Malik, what does it mean?
No, so what does it mean?
So what is
Look,
the point there?
I'll tell you.
What is the point?
Wait.
What does make the
I
Quran
am going to
supreme
tell you then.
Compared to the Torah, goodness me, the Tanakh.
Let me tell you.
You see the eloquence. Have you read Psalm
let me tell-
150?
wait, I'll
see
tell
the
you.
eloquence there. Have you read it in
see,
the Hebrew language?
Now you're going
Have you
into.
read Psalm 150?
Excuse me,
119
Daniel.
in Hebrew language.
What
See
was
the
my
alphabetical,
point? What was my point of Malik Yawmiddin is this, which you are not letting me finish.
Okay.
Quran is using this usloob, this stylistics that Quran is bringing, in which it is defying the conventional use of the language of the Arabs at that time. The Arabs at that time were not familiar, as far as the evidence is at hand with us, that they can even tell that anyone can be the owner, the master, the king of time, the king of a day, owner of a minute, owner of an hour. Allah is saying He is the owner of the Yawm al-Qiyamah, the day of judgment. He is the master of it. So this kind of expression the Quran is using, the Arabs were totally unfamiliar with in their stylistics, in their vocabulary, in their normal convention of language. So the Quranic language is such that it is bringing things like this, and it's asking people, if you don't accept this is from the Quran, فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِثْلِهِ. So he says, Malik Yawmiddin, then this is what? إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ, right?
Okay,
Wait,
with this.
no, I'm not going to
Come
finish
on,
with
finish
it.
with this.
I'm going to start.
What do you mean you are not going to
Whole
finish?
chapter I'm going to
No,
demonstrate to you.
We have to finish something.
Whole chapter.
We have to
Wait,
finish something
wait.
and move on.
No, wait.
No, because this
No,
is
I
what you
cannot.
are saying.
I am going
It
to
is-
demonstrate
as
to
I
you.
mentioned, did anyone before me?
Daniel,
Did anyone else?
Listen.
Just tell me. If you haven't, this is a miracle. This is wonderful. This is
Wait.
eloquent. It has the contents. I know what the contents.
Wait. You try for a second understand my argument, my point. When the Quran says غير المغضوب ولا الضالين,
غير المغضوب
Wait.
عليهم. Don't miss the Quran. Don't miss
I am
the
going
Quran.
you
Don't
a
miss-
tarkeeb.
Okay.
Of course. غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. But when the Quran uses غير of something and ولا, غير and لا, in the Arabic language that you have learnt, right? The Arabic language of the pre-Islamic poets, do you find they're using غير and لا in a tarkeeb? Ever? Even once?
Wow, goodness me. The Quran.
Excuse me,
First,
I asked you a
let's-
specific
let's-
question.
Listen, bringing something not anyone else brought without really much depth of meaning
Depth of-
doesn't make sense.
I will tell you the depth
I
of
tell
meaning
you-
in a
I tell
second.
you, Mansur, I tell you,
First-
I brought you a phrase. You
Subhanallah.
can you interpret
I am-
my phrase?
no,
Can you
I
tell,
am- listen.
Can you tell someone else? Can you tell
Listen.
your Quran brought this phrase?
listen.
Tell me. I want
Daniel.
clarification. No, Mansur.
Write it down for me.
With your Quran.
Write it down for me.
No.
No, I want you to write it down for me.
I will tell you what I have written down.
No, that
I will
particular
tell you.
phrase.
Is this the Quran?
What?
Are these verses from the Quran? You read Arabic.
Go ahead, you tell me.
اوكي 10 صفات مشتركه بين الله والشيطان في القران 10 characteristics shared between Allah and the Shaitan.
When we are discussing about the Quranic nature of the challenge, you are now saying,
because
Daniel,
Mansur, you
what
are
a
moving
shame,
so much.
what a
You are
shame,
moving so much.
what a
It's
shame.
shame.
An opportunity for
Clarify
a
to
Christian
me.
Arab
Clarify to me.
to have a
You do not
discussion
have to-
on the nature of the challenge of the Quran, and he
Satan
miskeen, subhanallah, you're a miskeen.
Subhanallah.
What a miskeen you are. What a miskeen you are. So I asked him, I asked you, the expression غير,
are these part of the Quran or not? Are these verses in the Quran or not? Are these verses in the Quran or not? 10 characteristics shared between Allah and Satan.
Which ayah is this referring to?
You listen to it.
Which
You
ayah?
read it.
Which
You read
ayah?
it.
Okay, let me read
You
it.
read it.
Okay.
Come on.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Now let's.
No,
What?
you don't take it.
I'm not
You
taking
read
it.
but you don't.
I
take
want
it.
to talk about this.
Okay, finish
Good,
this.
good.
But
So-
quickly, Mansur, because you talk.
Oh, very quickly then.
Yes.
And you can answer very quickly.
Okay, just tell me.
Are you going to
about
answer
this.
very quickly?
Yeah.
Good. Which Arabic poet said غير and la in their tarkib?
Say no one. Doesn't
Right.
make sense.
So of course it makes sense. The Quran clearly it makes the nature of the challenge of the Quran. Is it rhymes? Is it eloquence? Is it contents? And of course, is it meaning or not? He didn't answer any of these questions because he knows he doesn't understand the challenge very well. He doesn't understand challenge at all. So I started by saying, okay, let us talk about the pre-Islamic poetry that you are so familiar with. So he's familiar with the pre-Islamic poetry because he quoted some of those poets and their poetry. So I told him, which of those poets demonstrated a stylistic pattern or usloob, or we call al-asalib. This is part of your linguistics, the feature of language, which the Quran is using and sharing from them. Because the challenge of the Quran is bring something like it. So that means it has its own asalib, own stylistics. So I gave him an example from Surah Al-Fatiha. Of course, he interrupted every single time I was about to offer him the specific stylistics embedded within the ayah. So I gave him the example of an ayah from Surah Al-Fatiha, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Which of the pre-Islamic poets ever talked about that they have a concept of Lord of all the worlds in plural, Alam and Alameen? Because this is totally new to the Arabic vocabulary brought by the Quran. Quran brought them this concept to them in their vocabulary. They didn't have it. We have no evidence so far in the hundreds and thousands of poetry that has survived. I gave an example of Maliki Yawmiddin, where Allah is saying He is the owner, the master, the king of a day of judgment, the day of recompense. The Arabs, in their vocabulary at the time and before, had no such concept that you can be an owner or a king or a master of time, like an hour or a minute or a day or a month or a year. Non-existence. It is totally impossible for them to have constructed anything which they don't have even have in their vocabulary, in their conventional language. So when the Quran came and said bring something like it, how are they going to bring something like it? Because Quran is bringing something new totally, but conceptually it is understood. They understood what it means. Maliki Yawmiddin, oh, he owns and he's the master, he's the king. So in that day no one is going to be able to challenge to them, bring something like it. So when I said غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين, Quran uses a construct غير and لا. The Arabs don't use this at all. They say غير وغير or لا and لا. He said لا هذا ولا هذا, غير هذا وغير هذا. They don't mix these two, غير and لا. But the Quran uses them and is no less than any beautiful eloquence. So these kind of stylistic features totally numbed and silenced and incapacitated the Arabs of the day of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And this is just one oft repeated surah. Whether you speak about Surah Ikhlas, as he was saying, or Quraysh or others, every single surah we can demonstrate how these new linguistic features exceed the number of words that are within the surah itself. So if a surah has 28 words, for example, the new linguistic features will exceed 28 words, maybe 32 or 38 or more and so more. Every single surah. This has been objectively demonstrated by scholars. A particular scholar by the name of Bassam Sa'i in his book called Mu'jiza. So I ask those who are Arabic speaking, speak Arabic, please go and read this book and see for yourself how objectively this is laid out. You have 3 genres of literature: the pre-Islamic poetry, Quran, and Hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How the Quran is so unique compared to the other two. When we compare the Quran with the Hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, still you can see the difference. And studies have been done objectively, academic studies by Dr. Ibrahim Awad, if I'm pronouncing his name properly. And he says a book like this, Quran wal Hadith, Muqarana Uslubiyya. And if you read, you will see how he is taking several concepts in everyday language about, say, clothing, the words that are used for clothing, the words that are used for food and drinks, the words that are used in your warfare and battles, the words that are used in economics and so on and so forth, and how the Quranic words and the words that are used in the Hadith, they do not match. So you may have like 1% or 0% occurrence in the Hadith, and the Quran has them all. Or Hadith has them and Quran has 0% of them. It's like this is a work of 2 different individuals. So when scholars of literature, when they examine these 2 pieces of work, they are certain objectively the Hadith of Rasulullah as documented, as transmitted, and the Quran, they cannot be from one person, because totally different style. This is how even in other literature, in New Testament studies, whether this is a works of Paul, the apostle, or not, they can tell you this is the style of Paul. That's not. This is how people can compare styles and say, oh, this is the style of his writing. So when you read Shakespeare, you'll say, oh, that's the Shakespeare style of Shakespeare. So studies have been done objectively also. Muqarana, comparison between the Hadith and the Quran. That's one. And what I was alluding to earlier, the Quran, the Hadith, and the pre-Islamic poetry. Clearly demonstrating, without a shadow of doubt for those who use their mind, their reason and their intellect, that the Quran is not a human speech. Cannot be a human speech. In fact, when the Quran challenges them to bring something like it, we now understand why they were incapable of doing that. Now we understand why they were incapacitated, why they were unable, why they were totally silenced by the Quran. So any attempt by people saying, look, this is the rhyming. The Quranic challenge is not about rhyme. Rhyming can be a byproduct of a feature in literature, because rhyming is part of eloquence. But this is not the objective challenge of the Quran. The Quran doesn't say, bring a better rhymed verse, ayah like it. It says, فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِثْلِهِ. And each surah is unique. It has a hallmark. The way the surah talks about, unique. So even if you were to compare 2 similar sounding surahs and you compare them, Surah Ash-Shams, Surah Al-Layl, you might think they're very similar, but you will see how 80% or so are unique to each of individual surahs themselves. So, in summary then, what I would like everyone to go and research further is to understand the challenge of the Quran that the Quran has placed to mankind who disbelieve in it, the nature of the challenge. And go and study it, research it, and then you will be able to take forward to the non-Muslims and share with them this unique challenge which totally stops people from imitating it and demonstrating that this is nothing but the words of Allah. The example I often like to quote in summary well, I don't quote in summary, but I'd like to quote now in summary is this. Quran came in a language, the language of the Arabs, in their own vocabulary. Alif, ba, ta, tha, right? The Quran even uses the huruf al-muqatta'at in many of the surahs. Alif, lam, mim. 3 letters, alif, lam, mim. Or others, hamim. It's showing, demonstrating to them. Same Arabic letters are used to compose the Quran, to bring the Quran to you from Allah as a revelation. And yet you're unable to bring it. Why? Because these letters of your language have been used, but they've been delivered in such a way that you can be certain. That is why at that time, when the challenge was there, they decided instead to fight him in battles, let alone bring a chapter. They could have just said, there you go, here is my poetry. The best poet comes along. Here's my poetry. Another poet comes along and says, my poetry is good as well. Here is a chapter like the Quran. Did they do that? Everyone failed. In fact, they didn't even attempt, many of them, because they realized, لَيْسَ هَذَا كَلَامُ الْبَشَرِ. This is not a statement of a saying. So the way the Quran brought this is like this. Suppose now, there's a building, right? I'm an architect. And I say, look, I have just built a building over there. You will be unable to build something like it, similar to it. And then all the architects saying, come on, I know where you studied. I know which engineering university or polytechnic you've been to. We know the same thing. We know the trade. They say, okay, fine. My building is made up the same bricks of your building. Same bricks. But look at that. Look at my building. Look at it closely. Every single brick from every other brick is floating. None of them are touching each other. No brick is touching another brick. Every part of the structure, all of the walls of the sides, the front, the top, is like this. Each brick is floating. So the connection is like not like this, one touching the other in cement and so on. They're floating each other from each other. Bring something like it. Do you think any architect today, 2017, June, would be able to bring a building like mine? Impossible. No trade in engineering, in architecture, civil engineering or otherwise, would be able to bring a building where all the bricks are totally separate from each other and floating, as we, so to speak. Impossible. So when the Quran brings like this chapters, this is how unique it brings, even though they're composed of letters and words and sentences as people understand. And yet, when it is asked of them, bring something like it, they know it is impossible for them. So I leave this thought with you to reflect on the nature of the challenge of the Quran, and in the future, God willing, inshallah, when we have an opportunity to speak with knowledgeable non-Muslim who are Arabs or have learned Arabic, then it will be a very fruitful discussion to even demonstrate further, rather than giving you a lecture on the challenge of the Quran. Because when we have someone who can understand and appreciate from a different faith group, this is when we can make our point clearer. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله ولكم. السلام على من اتبع الهدى. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته to my Muslim brothers and sisters. Thank you.
I heard something today. Every person.
Okay. When you finish this, we'll come back.
Lord Green.
When you finish, no, I want to discuss this.
Yeah,
so when you're like, the story's over, tell me when the over, then I'll come back to it.
Lord Stephen Green.
Okay. So
every person.
we'll come back to when it's finished.
Jesus Christ was challenged. I have met with
No.